Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Peter Romeo. This is Howard Behar. Probably, as all of you are aware, Howard used to work for a small chain called Starbucks. But why don't you put some more color on that? Tell us when you joined Starbucks, what capacity, and what your mission was.
Well, I was actually trying to escape corporate life when I joined Starbucks. I thought I'd start with this little tiny coffee company that had 28 stores in Seattle and do something that only filled my soul. And the next thing I knew, I was back in the corporate life again. But a great experience. I was there from 28 stores to retired from the board when there were 15,000 stores. So it was one hell of a ride, let me tell you.
What was your mission when you went in there? What were your tasks, your priorities?
Well, I was kind of the operator. There were two of us that had gray hair. We had this young guy named Howard Schultz who was 34 years old and didn't know much about business at that time or about leading organizations. And there was a guy named Orrin Smith and myself that came in to help Howard out. And I had responsibility for everything that touched the customer, from both wholesale and the retail business that we had.
So you were the adults watching the
We were the adults watching the kid, yeah.
You are known for a philosophy that could be pretty much summed up as people first. And what do you mean by that?
Pretty much what it says is that there's not one thing that any of us will do in life that isn't about serving another human being. Yet we forget that. We think it's about the offices that we have, the title that we have on our business card, or it's about the products that we sell. But it's not about any of that. It's only about being of service to other humans. And one of the things I like to say to college graduates, because they're all out looking for, they're thinking about their first job. And I said, the best title you could ever have on your card is server of people. And I mean, this room is all about that, right? Food service business is only about serving others. So that's what I mean.
And certainly, there's not a person in this audience who wouldn't say that their organization puts people first, that it's all about the people. The most aggressive business person would never say, we're really about profits. We don't really care that much about people. How did you really make people come first? How did you make that real? And how did you make that so real that it was a point of distinction for your customers and for your prospective hires?
Well, it has to be real, first of all. And one of the problems is that there's a lot of CEOs and companies that they say people are our most important asset. And as soon as I hear them use that word asset, I know that they don't get it, because people are not assets. Trucks are assets, computers are assets, things that we turn on in the morning and they usually work and they give you what you expect. People never give you what you expect. They're always either giving you a little more or a little bit less, but never exactly. So I have this saying, care like you really mean it. And what that means is this, is that you always put your people before yourself. That organizations and people come together in an organization to achieve goals and to live out the mission or the greater purpose of the organization. Within that, though, there has to be the mission and the goals of the people that are working in the organization. And that's the first thing that you have to honor. And you have to understand what are their needs, what are their wants, and what are their goals in life. And then you have to figure out how to help them to achieve what they want. And if you do that, then they'll help you achieve what you want inside your organization. But putting people first it's an attitude, it's a way of living, and anytime you break trust with that, then you have to start over from scratch again and trying to build trust. So it's just doing the things that people know in their heart that you're doing it because you care about them, not because you care about the business.
So help us see this in concrete terms. Now, I'm sure that there are these individuals called investors who might not have always seen eye to eye with this philosophy. Could you give us an example where the profit motive conflicted with your philosophy of people first?
Well, it's always, from a shareholder perspective, it's always in a sense conflicting, because particularly a greedy shareholder, one that doesn't think about the long term. So we had, in the early days, we put healthcare into our system. Long before there was a big discussion on healthcare, long before it got the national attention. And we did it because we thought it was the right thing to do. It was Howard Schultz had grown up in a family where his father was injured on the job, didn't have any health insurance, and he said, I'm never going to let that happen in a place that I work if I ever get the chance. And so, he was a driving force behind that, and it cost us a lot of money. At one time, it was costing almost as much as the coffee we purchased was costing us, but we stayed with it. But there was constant tension in the marketplace. Used to hear from shareholders all the time, why do you have to give health care to part-time workers? They don't need it. It wasn't the point whether they need it or not. We felt it was a right to have it, and we wanted to be able to look at everybody as they were coming down the hallway from us and know that we were all in this game together. So we gave stock options to everybody before we were public, and we gave health care to everybody before we were public. And it's always been a high cost, it's a really high cost today, but never in one board meeting that I was ever at did it ever come up that we should get rid of health care. But you know, it costs more money, no question. And thankfully, all you were willing to pay for it, so thank you.
It sounds as if there was the germ of the culture there, but it was a matter of cultivating it or seizing that opportunity. I would imagine that along the way, not everyone bought into that philosophy.
In the early days, it really wasn't there. It's like all typical entrepreneurial organizations. The entrepreneur thinks their business is about the product or the service that they're selling. And as soon as they hire one person, then it becomes about people and about serving people. And Starbucks was the perfect, I have to admit, it was the perfect venue for doing what I believe we should do, which was, make it about the people, because it's a social product. Right? We drink a cup of coffee with other people, having a conversation, reading a newspaper. Sometimes it's just having a conversation with ourselves. But it's with that cup of coffee, so it kind of fit it. In the early days, our customers used to accuse us of being arrogant. I remember when I first got there, I was there about maybe 3 months, and it was amazing. 3 letters came in on the same day where customers had written us and said, I don't need to come in and hear your garbage about how great your coffee is. I just want a hot cup of coffee, and I want it with a smile on your face. And I read all 3 of these letters, and I invited the 3 customers into the office to meet with our leadership team. And I had, at that time, we didn't have very many people, maybe 100 in the leadership team. And we just had an exchange about what the issues were, and it became one human being to another human being. It wasn't customer to employee, it wasn't Starbucks to customer, it was people to people. And that began this process of beginning to understand what this place was all about and how we needed to not only take care of the people we're serving, but how we needed to take care of the people inside of Starbucks. And I have this saying that Starbucks isn't in the people business, isn't in the coffee business serving people, but we're in the people business serving coffee. Mm-hmm. And it's a little play on words, but it became a driver in the organization. And I think we stayed true to that.
How critical was it to the success? And were you able to quantify that? What metrics, what guides did you use to verify that this was the way to go rather than taking a less costly approach?
Well, we didn't use metrics for that. Okay, we were doing what we thought was right. We were trying to figure out what human beings wanted and what they needed, in a sense, and what we wanted. And so we just lived who we were. But it was everything. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's everything. Starbucks was not my first dance. And I saw it work in other places too. That when you put people here at the top of this pyramid, right, the ones that matter, then everything has to flow from that. Every decision you make should flow from that idea. And so that idea it drove the business. And it's what drives the business today. One question I always get asked is, well, what kind of training programs do you have? We had lousy training programs. Yeah, we teach people how to make a cup of coffee and do all those things, but we didn't have any smile training programs. We did have one program that was really good, and I think they still use it today. It was called Star Skills. Star Skills was not about business. Star Skills was 100% about teaching people how to interact with other human beings in a productive way. You could take that knowledge and take it home and use it with your families or with your kids as equally as use it in our stores. And that was the one thing that we did have. We were trying to teach people to be better human beings.
It sounds as if there was a lot of management by gut in some degree.
Sure.
Do you envy the restaurateurs of today with the amount of knowledge that they have, the amount of data that they have through technology, and having that resource to help them make decisions and to cultivate their culture and their business?
I don't envy I don't envy everybody, because there is such a danger to think that data is what it's all about. Right? I like to tell this joke: if your wife or her husband comes home tonight and says, you know, honey, I'm not happy in this marriage, do you really need to have data? More data than that? But the problem is that, right, we think we have to have data to make a decision, and we don't. We have to have information to make a decision, but the best information still comes from one-on-one conversations. You know, when you go get all this information, it all comes in spreadsheets, and all these questions you ask, and what the customer is saying, and which ones from this neighborhood are saying this, and all of a sudden it becomes not real. Mm-hmm. It becomes a giant attempt at manipulation to get what you want, right? Because you have all this information. And I'm afraid that unless we're careful, we're going to lose the human touch in our businesses. And yeah, I mean, are there businesses that don't need a human touch? Certainly. I live in the city of no human touch, you know, with Amazon and Microsoft. You know, Amazon is 100% about transactions. Their customer service is about transactions. Their sales about transactions. That's what they're about. Now, they do a good job at that. But in our business, where we have to come face to face with the people that we're serving and face to face with the people that are serving, it's about human relationships, real human relationships. It's not about transactions. It's about caring about one another, about trying to serve one another in a way that helps people have a better life. So, you know, I'm actually glad I don't have to deal with all that, because I don't want to have to come in the morning and only look at data. I want to come in the morning and ask Sally or Jim next to me, what did they do last night? How are they doing? What are they planning on doing today?
Well, similarly, continuing in that vein a little bit, here we are at a technology conference where many of the technologies we've talked about these last 2 days have dealt with sort of replacing the person-to-person exchange, that interrelationship, mobile order and pay.
Sure.
Is people first and technology incompatible?
No, they're totally compatible. You know, Starbucks has been the leader in using technology. We started with, you know, I was in Israel. I think I saw it in the magazine. It was a story. And I came back, a friend of mine was in the military in Israel. And this is about 20 years ago. And he had this card with a chip on it, and I'd never seen anything like it. And it got him into the air base, it got him his groceries and everything. And I said, God, that's fantastic. What was going through my head was, God, that would work at Starbucks, because our best customers are coming in 18 times a month. So, and the least use is probably 2 or 3 times a month. So I brought that card back to Seattle, and I said, could we do anything with this? Well, at that time, that card cost about $10. Right? And the backup technology wasn't there to handle it. Over a period of about 15 years, the people at Starbucks figured out how to make it work, and now that card came out. But now you're seeing the card replaced by the telephone. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So we keep moving down this track. But those are all there to make people's lives easier and to serve people. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we were trying to do.
So certainly there's no doubt that Starbucks would be regarded as a technological innovator today. Did you see the seeds of it when you walked in on day one? Was there that openness?
There was an openness to new ideas, mm-hmm. not to technology. I mean, Starbucks really started before the internet revolution. I mean, that's what allowed us to get such a giant head start, because nobody knew what we were doing until we had about 2,000 stores. But then technology started to come, the internet started to come. And I think Howard Schultz has been remarkable at that. He has been, first of all, he's never satisfied. And he's always willing to try stuff. As long as it's not illegal, unethical, or immoral, he'll try it. And that really made a difference. And particularly with technology, he had this giant interest in technology. I mean, I was too old for it, you know. I'm 72, so I'm always been amazed. I'm still amazed. I walked through that room this morning, I said, you gotta be kidding me, you can do that with that? And, but, so we've been driving it a long time, but we were one of the first to bring in free internet. Mm-hmm. And it just I think it fit our business model. Mm-hmm. And so it was part of that. You know, our customers were demanding it too.
One of the questions that's been much discussed here at FS Tech has been the need to sort of bring along the non-believers in tech. And it sounds like you might have even dabbled in that camp a little bit yourself. At Starbucks, what was the process for internally selling the capital investment for some new technology?
Well, anytime you bring in something new in, there's always a battle, right, of what you're going to do. And it depends on whose idea it was. If it was Schultz's idea, the capital seemed to flow from amazing places. It just came in quickly, right? But, you know, it was like anything else. We tested everything. And we tried things. We put internet in it. When we first put internet in the stores, we put it in about 50 stores to see if people would use it. Hell, I'll give you a piece of simple technology. You see what I'm sitting on, right? Trying to get chairs in Starbucks stores in the early days was like pulling teeth, because the heads of people that were running real estate at the time were worried about the different permitting process that we'd have to go to have this amount of chairs. Well, a chair is technology, right, in a sense. It's a place to sit. So the battles have always been there, but there's always been somebody to fight the battles. You know, when I was there, I had the battles that I fought for the things that I believed in, from semi-automated espresso machines to warming ovens. And then came along technology with internet. All of us kind of jumped on that because we all thought that was the way to go. And the card was kind of easy if we could, it was just hard. I think the more difficult things now is you know, with the cell phones and all those things, but it's always been a welcoming company. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of Starbucks, is a willingness to try things and a willingness to fail.
Well, we've seen so many good ideas come out of Starbucks, but I'm going to guess that not everyone was a winner. Could you share with us some of the misfires and sort of what the recovery was, what the reaction was internally? I mean, was there room to fail in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, there was always room to fail. I mean, there were amazing things happened. I mean, we had, a lot of it had to do with product. So we introduced a product called Mazagran. It was a joint venture with Pepsi-Cola. It was our first grocery convenience store product. And it basically was like a cola with coffee in it. And we'd done all our research. Pepsi had all this great research on it. We did everything. We spent a year on it. Had the most beautiful bottle, and we were all drinking it and thinking this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. We got it out there. Within 3 weeks, it was an abject failure. People hated it. It didn't sell. And I still have that bottle in one of those plastic things in my office to remind myself about failure, because about 8 months later, we came out with bottled Frappuccino. So it was a milk-based drink, and it's been a blowout success. It's over $4 billion in sales now, in terms of with fresh coffee. So products, we've tried all sorts. Hot chocolate, from products have always come and gone, and we've tried things, and we've never worried about it. If it didn't work, we got rid of it and moved on. We've made mistakes with our people. As much as we loved our people, as much as we thought we were caring about our people, we are always screwing something up. You know, money can get in the way of a lot of things. And one time we were struggling to make our quarter, so we cut back on the hours of all our supervisors. And boy, man, did that cost us? We broke trust with people. That took us 5 years to get back.
Any tech that you recall that was under consideration that never saw the light of day, but was much discussed internally?
None that I can think of.
Okay. And it sounds as if the tech department really kind of grew from nothing to what I presume was a sizable operation by the time you left. Do you remember how large, in general terms, your tech department was at the time you retired?
Oh, God, I don't know. It was probably a couple hundred people.
A couple hundred people, and this was in what year?
This would have been about 8 years ago.
So 8 years ago, a couple hundred people there.
Yeah.
And in terms of who owned tech? This is a question that's been much discussed. Where did that fall in the organization?
Operators own tech. Okay, the people that were in the business, I don't mean the store operator, but the operators own technology. We made the early mistakes where we thought technology owned technology. The IT department owned IT, right? But after a while, we realized with the millions and millions of dollars that we wasted on stuff that we never really needed and didn't know how to use, we figured out that operators had to be in the room and had to be part of the driving force. You couldn't just hand it off to somebody and say, give me what you think we ought to have. You had to be there driving it. And now it's integrated, right? It's not only IT or it's technology, but there's people in operations that are driving, particularly all the service stuff that we do with technology.
Sure.
Yeah.
How important was it that you be first, that you be ahead of the pack? I think one of the presenters today talked about being a pioneer versus a settler. How important was it in Starbucks to be out ahead when it came to technology?
I don't think it was important. We weren't doing it for that reason. We did it when we first put internet in the stores, we didn't have free. We had signed this deal with, I think it was with AT&T, and we charged, and that didn't work, and it took us a long time to get out of that deal. But what drove it and what drives it is service to people. If we can figure out how to make it work better for our people and for the people that we're serving, then we'll try it. And that should be always the driver. Our customers really could care less whether it improves our profit margins or not. Mm-hmm. What they really want to know is, how does it help me? And it's the same with the people that work in the stores. Our people that work in the stores, I mean, it's not their job to be concerned about the quarterly profit. We have to be concerned with, does it make their job easier? Does it make their job better? Mm-hmm.
Was there a lot of flow upward of ideas from the store level to corporate, especially when it came to technology?
Yeah, I mean, there was, particularly today, because I mean, we're full of young people, and we got a lot of college kids in our stores, so they're always driving new ideas. And the people at Starbucks, leadership at Starbucks, listen. I mean, who better to go to than, our people in our stores are also big customers too. Mm-hmm. So, it just pays to listen to them because they know what's happening in the marketplace.
There have been so many ideas that Starbucks hatched that have been stolen, from the sleeves, you name it. Why do you think no one was able to duplicate their culture?
Well, because culture is yours. Culture isn't a program. Culture is not something you invent. Culture is who you are at your core. So it's not what you say, it's what you do. It's just like at home. It's exactly the same thing. Your kids don't care what you say, they just watch what you do. Well, I got news for you. That's exactly what happens in an organization. If you're an asshole, then your people are going to be assholes. Excuse us. Okay? Okay. And so being who you are, caring about people, that's our culture. And not every company has our culture, nor should they. Microsoft, lives where I is in my hometown, was not exactly a fun place to work. Yeller Screamer CEO, Yeller Screamer president, working. There was just this big article in the New York Times on Amazon. Then it happens to be true. It's not a pleasant place to work.
Yet you had an HR department, and you're not going to try to tell me that your HR department didn't put a poster in the break room talking about culture and best practices?
Well, let me tell you, there always were trying to get posters. I hate those things. I walked into a store, I retired and then came back to help out for a while, and I walked into the back room of a store, and here was this poster. It said, "Be nice, be fast, be clean." It just really pissed me off. I grabbed that thing, I tore it off the wall, and I'd say, why don't they put something up like "just be human"? That would be better. But those things, they're just programs du jour. A CEO loves those posters because they go in there and say, oh, I've got this set up there so the people are doing what I want because there's a poster up there. People could care less about posters. They don't believe any of that stuff anyway. What they care about is who you are and how you act, and is that consistent with what you say? If they're not consistent, then you got a problem, and that's the kind of culture you'll have.
How much of Starbucks' success was a matter of being in the right place at the right time, that this attitude was coming to fruition, or there was a sort of an openness or a willing to accept it? I mean, I guess another way of looking at it is, could you start Starbucks and turn it into what it is today if you were starting today?
Well, I think that there's two questions in there. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, the internet hadn't started. Today, if you invent this bottle of water today, by the day after tomorrow, somebody in China, somebody in Australia has knocked it off, and they probably even tried to steal your brand name, right, to use it. So it's harder today to get growth without having a lot of competitors. But people don't realize that we had 21 competitors. When I started at Starbucks with 28 stores, there were companies that were bigger than we were in our business, identical, selling a cup of coffee, serving it over a counter, espresso drinks, etc. So, but we did have that advantage, and timing was lucky. Like I said, people couldn't figure out what we were doing till a long ways. And I think what Orrin and I knew, we've been used to bigger companies. And we knew what really mattered was people and money. And you got to have great people, and you got to have a lot of capital. And so we went out early and raised a lot of capital, and it worked. You know, but I wouldn't say we were any more brilliant than anybody else. I don't think we were. I think luck played a big role. The market was there. Now, from the people side, what I'm talking about is not new. What I'm talking about, when I talk about caring about people, that's thousands of years old. We just keep ignoring it. Well, I don't know, but we do. But there's always been organizations around that have cared about their people. There's always been small companies. I grew up in a small mom and pop grocery store. My dad was an immigrant from Bulgaria. Came to Seattle in 1911 as a 15-year-old, never saw his family again. Worked at the Pike Place Market pushing a cart, saved a couple of nickels, and opened up a small mom and pop grocery store that was the size of this stage. And then he got a big store. It was about twice the size of this stage. And I was about 8 years old, and I'd go into the store after school, and one day he said, "Howard, go in the back and get me some bananas." Get about 6 of them. A customer was standing at the counter. And I came back with the bananas, and he put the bananas in the bag, and I was old enough to realize that he hadn't rung them up. And so I said to my dad, "Hey, you forgot to ring those up." And he said, "Shh," right, like that. And after the customer had left, he said, "Howard, the reason I didn't ring those bananas up is that those people are not only our customers, they're our friends. And I know they're struggling to make ends meet right now, and I know they like bananas. So it's our job to take care of human beings." And that was my first lesson in being of service to others versus yourself. And that's what we try to do at Starbucks. But that lesson is old. That, for me, was almost 60-some years ago, over 60 years ago. But those lessons have been passed down through generations. But yet we have such a hard time with it. So at Starbucks, when I got there, you know, was my big battle with Howard. I used to tell Howard, we're not in the coffee business. That's what we sell, but we really are in the people business. I drive him nuts. It wasn't that Howard wasn't a people guy. He was. Howard cares deeply about people. But I believe that we had to do everything to drive that. And so, you know, my job, I felt, was to drive that culture inside of Starbucks. And so I was relentless about it. I gave the same speech 10,000 times. If I did TV programs, people always want to talk about numbers. There's only 2 things I talk about, the people and the coffee, and primarily the people. And I still think that's what matters today.
So if we go into a Starbucks, the nearest Starbucks here, and walk in there, where would we see your legacy? How is it reflected in those operations and in that experience?
Well, hopefully it's reflected in somebody looking at you with real eyes. That when you get a cup of coffee, that somehow you feel that it's just not about shoving it across the counter and say, "Give me your money," or not asking you, "Would you like a muffin with that today?" You know, one of the things I hate. You know, I hate walking into a place, particularly a place I go all the time. You know, it used to drive me nuts if I walk into a big fast food place and, "Would you like an order of fries with that today?" If I want to order fries, I'd order them. And particularly at Starbucks, where you're coming in all the time, didn't work. So I hope that it's service, real service, that it's human service, not customer service. It's not that you've got a dollar bill pasted on your forehead, and if we just say the right thing, we'll get that dollar bill. But when you come into our place, that we care about you. It's why nobody ever asks you to leave. You could sit in a Starbucks store all day long, never buy a thing, work on your computer. I hope that it's never happened that anybody ever asked you to leave. How many places could you do that? Not very many.
Not very many.
Not very many. And so it's about being of service to human beings, not customers. I think when you put the word customer in front of it, it implies that they have something you want, and if you just do the right thing, you'll get it. Versus if you don't buy anything from me, it's okay.
Now, this is not the first time we've shared a stage, and after the last time we were together, one of the questions that I was hammered about was, how much coffee does this guy drink?
I drink 2 cups a day. I have 2 triple tall Americanos, no sugar, no cream every morning. That's it. That gets me going. It's like rocket fuel.
And I know this, since we've talked before, that you do use mobile order and pay.
I do use mobile order and pay. If you haven't tried that, that's the most amazing thing. And I think we're rolling out that you can pre-order. You can be walking down the street or in your office and order, and the drink will be there for you. All paid, you just go pick it up. It's amazing.
And that is, in your mind, that is no dilution of the people first.
No, because it is in service to the people we're serving, and it makes the jobs easy for our people in the stores. It doesn't mean we don't have battles or conversations about those things, about everything. When we first put, on the cup it has the little squares with what the drink is. That was like a battle royal inside of Starbucks. Everybody thought, well, we were diminishing the role of the barista because I was trying to make it easier. That was my idea, and I kept pushing it. Everybody was pushing back. I said, let's just try it. As soon as it got in there, everybody loved it because now everybody knew what their drink was. It was before we used names on the cups. Sure. So, there's always a battle. There's always a reason why not to. And my message to the people inside of Starbucks, what do we got to lose? Try it. If we don't like it, you don't like it, we'll take it out. Mm-hmm. And we've taken things out, but we've kept more than we've taken out.